I am Gretchen Shepherd. I live here in Long Branch on the southern tip of the Peninsula, but this is not where I'm from. I grew up in eastern Washington, outside of Yakima, west of Yakima, right in between Cowiche and Tieton. Art was always kind of a part of my life. My mom sewed all our clothes. I'm the youngest of 4 girls, and she was a weaver and a knitter and all of those wonderful things. And my very first memory is actually of sitting at the floor of her loom while she was weaving this fabric, and I was playing with balls of yarn, and the fabric she was weaving was actually this. And this is a sample of it, and this is all her chart. It was fabric that she made to make a sport coat for my dad. And she actually sent the material back to someplace in New York and had them make the coat. And that coat, my father wore to my daughter's wedding. She always taught us that everything needed light, dark, and bright. And this was a study in color that she wove and that hung in a gallery in La Conner for some time. And then we all loved it so much, so she made more and made one for each daughter. All of us are artists in our own way. It's pretty amazing. Carolyn has taken on the sewing. Sarah's a quilter. Patty can redesign any room at the drop of a hat. When I was 10, I was going to go to camp, and my grandmother let me borrow her camera, and this is it. She and my grandfather had a darkroom in their home, and she told me about it years ago. And then her little sister was also a photographer. Took a photography class in high school, and ended up buying my first camera myself. And it was one of those things where I just kind of loved it, and Grandma was so encouraging. And I loved the darkroom. I loved it. And went on to college and taught darkroom as a TA when I was getting my degree in education. And then I got a degree in teaching and went on to teaching and had kids and kind of set it aside for a long time. About 2009, I picked up a camera again and got a new one and went going along and started to develop and learn in the new digital age and what has changed. I found a mentor, and it's been just cruising ever since. I was at a workshop and that Art Wolfe was putting on, and afterwards I was talking to him and picking up one of his books, and I had been familiar with his work and whatnot, and he said, well, let me see some of your stuff. And I took out my iPad, and he kind of spun through it and said, Gretchen, with a little bit of work, you could do this. And 6 weeks later, I sold my first piece. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I messaged him, and he was like, see, you can do this. He just encouraged me, and we became friends, and he gave me ideas and things he did on workshops and on his blogs and whatnot. And I also followed other people that were photographers. I had studied a lot of work that Ansel Adams did originally in the zone system from way back. And so black and white and that element of color and light and dark and bright, as my mom said, was part of it there. But it was learning some more things about composition. There is a lady named Delane Johnson who is an acrylic and oil paint artist, and I've studied her work. And I went back to look at what my great aunt had done and my grandmother. I have my great aunt's work from the late 30s and the 40s. I have pictures all through Seattle and Washington that she did and all along the coast of just amazing slides. And she was so meticulous. She wrote all the information of each exposure on every slide. It was a matter of believing that I could do this and finding my niche and what I like to do, and because it's kind of all over the place. I love to do landscapes. Wildlife is my big favorite after I went to Alaska with Art Wolfe and photographed the Alaska brown bears in the wilderness. I love going to Yellowstone in off seasons when nobody's there and I was there in February in -22 and I just loved it. But I've also started to do some abstract work, and that was another aspect of this, of how do you communicate something that you see beyond, because there's so much what I call beauty hidden in plain sight. A lot of my work, it depends on where I'm going and what I do and what I want to see. And I'm a retired school teacher. I taught for 17 years in primary classrooms and the last 18 years as an elementary librarian. My degree is in oral interpretation of literature. Storytelling is kind of what I do. So it was, how do I create that story and tell it through some of my photos? This particular picture right here, we were in Death Valley, and it was an interesting trip because we had our intention was to go to Yosemite. We couldn't get into Yosemite because there had been a washout of the road and all those kind of things. We've been, twice this has happened to us down there. So we went to Death Valley. It was in April. So it's sunrise. And what's cool about that area is it comes and the sun bounces off in such a way that when you see it, the colors are extraordinary. And sometimes when you get things back in film, there's things in the atmosphere that your eyes will filter out, but the camera puts back in, and you think, my darkroom is now on computer. When I was in high school and college and when I was teaching darkroom, I would change the temperature of chemicals. I would dodge and burn the light and burn it in. I would take it out of the developer faster. I would do all kinds of things to play with light to change the image from what we saw, and that's what we were taught to do. So in this one, this is pretty close to what I saw. I have a bear shot over here too that is up at Katmai National Park. We were in the northwest corner of Katmai National Park and Preserve, in the preserve area, and I found the map the other day, and it was one of those situations where we flew in a small plane, were dropped off in the middle of a puddle, hiked in with our camera gear over our head, and then slid down into a river a while away, and then walked down the river with bears for 6 miles. It was so amazing. This whole wall along here is what I call kind of like a studio wall. It gives me an opportunity to throw things up on the wall that I'm working on or have worked on and see if they're working. Down below there's some abstract. It's a tulip field that I did, that I turned it to look like a painting from a photograph. There's the Hoh rainforest, which, lucky me, I went to the Hoh rainforest to photograph the Hall of Mosses, and we had no rain for like 3 weeks. The next one over is a double exposure I did. I took 2 different pictures and then just a little bit shifted in between them and then layered them because I wanted a kind of a real ethereal type of magical. It's called Playground of the Fae. The koi picture down below, they're just some of my favorites. That was at a artist co-op up on Friday Harbor. So sometimes it's purposeful, like Playground of the Fae was very purposeful. So it's all kind of about the story that needs to be told. And sometimes I don't know what that story is until I open the photo on my computer. This is kind of my workstation. Not kind of, it is my workstation. I upload all my images into Lightroom. I wanted to find pieces that had just a really good low ISO so that the picture would be clear. I wanted a good depth of field on them, type of thing. So I did some sorting, and then I went through those and came up with some possible things to work on. This particular one is definitely more of a gritty, abstract kind of feel. It's down at Fort Stevens State Park in Oregon. and this is just the harsh elements of the way the water comes in, and this contrasted with the kind of soft sand. Down here on the Key Peninsula, we can get some pretty amazing things, and this was not too long ago. I've got a little bit of glare and my horizon's not right. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to do some basic things to change up my horizon to get some things set. And so Lightroom has this cool little feature where I can draw a line along the horizon that's there, and it straightens it. Yay. Does that. I'm going to go make sure that my things are set. Yep, they're set. Now, what do I want to do? So I'm going to drop, the highlights dropped way too far down, and I'm going to adjust the highlights and shadows. I've got a big sun flare here, and some people really like sun flares. I'm not a big fan of them, and I'm going to dehaze a bit. So I am going to crop this down and get rid of that sun flare and this one. So I've got a little bit more, it's kind of square, and it's still not the best composition. Let's go to the color shift, and I can take, where's the blue? I could make it really light or really dark. You know, I can do all kinds of stuff with the color if I wanted to. And this guy, I think I'm gonna work on this. So this is in February, and I was in Yellowstone. I was with a group called Yellowstone Forever, which is a nonprofit education group that is the official connection with the park. We pulled up and stopped just in time to see it do that dive thing. He went up in the air and he dove straight into the snow and came up with a mouse. We slowed way down, and the driver was able to open the door, and I'm like laying in the aisle at the door with my camera. So let's see if I can dehaze this a little bit, give him a little more contrast. Maybe that's what I wanted to do. Oh, he's kind of cool in black and white. Let's see. All right, so if you do black and white, then the colors, you can kind of do some fun things, and I need to get the blue out of that because there's a little bit of blue-green in the snow, so I need to get the blue out of there. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Take it back to black and white. Okay, cool. So then I'm going to crop it down. So see these lines you have here? There's the rule of thirds. So I don't want him sitting right in the center of that. I'd rather have him on a line up above, like his eyes on a line. But I'm not sure if I can, yeah, there I can get it. Still not lose this. So that is, let's see, done on that. That's a beginning step on that. I'm a big fan of black and white photography. Here you can't really tell that, of that aspect. You can't tell that it's a red fox, and because you can't tell the colors and whatnot. But what I like about that is I like the fact that what it gives you for the composition of what he's doing, and it focuses more sometimes on what the animal is doing or what the scene was compared to the colors being a distraction. This was a cool log. I like this one a lot. It's been sitting in here for a while, and the more I look at it, the more I like it. It is an art that I don't think I'll never lose subjects, that's for sure. And during this time here, I've done a lot of photography in my backyard or down at the beach where we could walk, but as long as I can pick up the camera or my husband can carry it for me, this is what I'm going to be doing.